And not only they came, but from Karachi, 2 Parsis came, some Buddhists came from Bangladesh, and of course, all this put together, and the Christians came, the Buddhists came, the Sikhs came, and the Parsis came. And by no means you can say that this bill, which deals with these 6 categories, Hindus, of course, Sikhs, according to the Constitution of India, which is a surprise to many people when I tell them, Constitution of India, Article 25 defines a Hindu. And how does it define a Hindu? Someone who is not a Muslim or a Christian or a Parsi. He is a Hindu. It's by elimination, Hindu is defined, which includes, therefore, the Buddhists and the Jains and the Sikhs. So this bill was to address the long-term problem faced by those who left these 3 countries, which are on our borders, and came here due to a special problem of being religiously persecuted. This is a separate category, and it is about, the total number is only 31,313 who are listed as people who have come over the years as having been religiously persecuted. They wanted to escape. They were declared by previous governments as illegal immigrants. But the previous governments, especially the Congress governments, had given them a certificate to enable them to live here as long as they wanted without being a citizen. But that was not good enough, because if you didn't want a citizen, you didn't have an Aadhaar card, it would be very difficult to get a job in India. If you don't have ID papers, a piece of paper saying that you're an illegal immigrant, you're an illegal migrant, and that you have a right to stay, it doesn't inspire confidence of those who want to give you a good job for a long-term period. So therefore, we came to a conclusion which was recommended by previous governments. For instance, the Congress government, as far back as 1947 November, Working Committee passed a resolution saying that these people who come because of religious persecution should be warmly welcomed and given citizenship. And subsequently, many leaders kept saying that. The last one to say it, central leader, was Manmohan Singh in the Rajya Sabha in 2003, with Advani sitting across as the Deputy Prime Minister, pleading with him that this special category should be given Indian citizenship. He said we should be generous about this and not go as sticklers to the rules. Of course, in this latest Parliament, when we adopted the bill, Manmohan Singh said the opposite. But I think it must have been a command performance and not his own opinion. So what we have done by passing this is empower these 31,313, of which 25,000 are Hindus, 5,000 are Sikhs, 55 are the Christians, 2 Buddhists and 2 Parsis. 0 Jains, there are no Jains in it. And of course, the question of Muslims coming to our country on religious persecution from Pakistan, Bangladesh, and Afghanistan, we have no record of anyone coming like that. We have had some people come who are prominent people who fell in foul with the government, like Tariq Fateh, who chose not Indian citizenship, although he came first to India from Pakistan, but he chose Canadian citizenship. And then Taslima, the poet from Bangladesh, she preferred a Swedish citizenship than Indian citizenship. Maybe because, living here means just next door to Pakistan or Bangladesh, they were not very confident that we'd be safe. So this 31,303 does not call for exclusion of any Indian citizen. It is giving Indian citizenship to people who are here as a long-term illegal migrant and living in terrible conditions in camps because they couldn't get jobs. They had to live on doles. But today you see what the atmosphere is. That this is anti-secular. Now it can't be anti-secular because we have given 55 Christians citizenship and 2 Parsis also. And so it's not a question of secularism, it's anti-Muslim is what now they are beginning to say. And I'm surprised to see all over the world there's a kind of a coordinated criticism of our country. New York Times yesterday had an editorial written by the editorial board of the New York Times to say that Narendra Modi has at last displayed his bigotry. Now, to call the Prime Minister of India a bigot without any basis for it whatsoever, and because on this constitutional principle, which was voted not only by BJP but many other parties, we could have never got it through Rajya Sabha if we didn't have the support of other parties. And this is the kind of difficulty that today our state of our nation is, that we are targets because we are potentially another superpower of the world. And this superpower status is within our reach. There was a time when there was hardly any economic growth. After independence, we chose the Soviet economic model. It was the biggest, most disastrous thing for us to do. Both Mahatma Gandhi and Patel were against it. But Jawahar Nehru was hell-bent on bringing the Soviet economic model. The Soviet economic model meant extracting resources from agriculture and using it for industrialization. It worked up to a point in Soviet Union when Stalin extracted resources from agriculture, because agriculture had a renaissance during the Tsar period. It was producing abundant and there was enough resources to be extracted. But in India, agriculture was down to the bone because the British in 1857 found that the peasantry was supporting Rani Jhansi, giving her men as well as to fight as well as money. And therefore they brought in the zamindari system to extract all the money that the zamindars could extract, but give a portion of it to the British to run their administration. So by 1947, agriculture was bone dry, and there was no question of extracting any resources. And at that time, by 1965, we ran into a serious problem because of drought, and we had to beg for food from the Americans. And so Lal Bahadur Shastri assembled a team, and he brought in what was called as a package for 10% of the top agriculturists who could afford to buy that package. And Green Revolution developed. We call it now Green Revolution, although it's not still a revolution because still 90% of the agriculture is to be addressed. But it was enough because India is a land of potential when it comes to agriculture. We are the only country, a large country, which can conduct agriculture 12 months of the year. America, 5 months of the year, there's snow. Britain, Europe is the same. Even China, for most parts, 3 months of the year, the winter is so severe that they can't have any agriculture. But India can have agriculture 12 months of the year, which means we can grow three crops a year, or 3 crop seasons. And that means tripling of our production. Because today, except for 25% of the land, where more than 1 crop is grown, we don't have any plot of land in our country where 3 crops are grown. But 25% have more than 1 crop. Our thing is a gross misutilization, lack of utilization of the resources, the land resources we have. And this is one of the most fertile land. Unfortunately, it hasn't got the nourishment that it needed. Our Indian Agricultural Research Institute on pilot plots produce 6 times more grain than an ordinary plot the farmer cultivates in our country. If you're in your own country, your own land, by scientific means you can produce 6 times, imagine how much grain we can produce. And we have one of the largest probably the largest cultivable land in the world, much more than China, which is 3 times larger than us, but it has less cultivable land than we do. So India, if you look all around, if you want to know what the current state of India is, it's a land of potential. It has to be exploited. Indians are doing very number of Indians, large means compared to the past, Indians have become lawmakers in the United States. Indians are prospering all over the world. But here, the extent to which they should be prospering, not because of the design of the development that we have, which I'll come to in a moment. But I would say there are a lot of ignorance about our constitution. When I was arguing in Parliament, I was surprised that lawyers who get fees, perhaps 25 lakhs per hearing, of course it's all unreported, so on record it must be only for 5 lakhs or something. So they are arguing in the floor of Parliament, either deliberately or out of ignorance, to say that this citizen amendment bill is against Article 14 of the Constitution, which says equality before the law. The Supreme Court has a number of times made it clear that when you say equality before the law, equality only of equals, not of unequals. Take for example today the reservations for the scheduled caste. Can a Brahmin say that under Article 14 I also should get reservation? We are denying reservations to the Savarna castes, the Brahmins, the Kshatriyas and the Vaishyas, but we are giving it to the backward classes. And is that not a violation of the equality principle? Obviously not, because the Supreme Court says these are not equal. Some have been denied, have been kept in a state of denial, so we have to give them a certain handicap. So in a number of ways, it's also the same thing argued when the SPG, which was meant only for prime ministers, was withdrawn from Sonia Gandhi and Rahul Gandhi. They argued that they were entitled to it. There was no way they were entitled, because prime minister is a separate category, and it's not, no members of parliament can be considered equal. So this is something we have to learn. Similarly, I hear from all these JNU types that they have freedom of expression, freedom of speech. We are intolerant. But the Constitution makes it very clear that all fundamental freedoms are subject to reasonable restrictions. And they describe the categories of reason. You cannot today, in the name of freedom of expression, say that I don't mind if India breaks up into 20 countries. That is not permitted in the Constitution, and it's one of the reasonable restrictions. Same thing, you can't say that I will have 4 wives because this is my religious privilege. Because although Article 25 says you have a fundamental right to pray, but it is also subject to reasonable restrictions. And what are those reasonable restrictions? Restrictions on health. If some practice of your religious practice of yours is bad for health, like sacrificing your son because you want to please Kali,